Welcome back to Two Who's Review. I'm Alex,
I'm Fitz.
I'm Sam.
and today we are reviewing The Androids of Tara, Part 4 in the Key to Time storyline. I've been very impressed with these Key to Time episodes so far. I really enjoy this one as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about it, but I will say I think this is the weakest one so far. And
Really?
part of that is the unfortunate thing of I think I know where this story is going, and I turn out to be wrong, which is a shame because where I thought it was going would have been much more interesting.
The curse of being talented as a story writer.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. But on watching it a second time, some of the shine did wear off. I think there were
Yeah.
problems I had with some of the storytelling, like the plot in conjunction with the world building. And I know that might be a bit of a silly thing to complain about in terms of, wacky sci-fi adventures, because it's, Tara's its own planet and they can, to an extent, do what they want. But I had issues with how it all came together. That being said, it was still quite enjoyable. I thought it was a fun episode. I liked some of the mystery. There's a lot of weird, not like huge narrative hairpin turns, but there are strange little incidents that I quite enjoy and appreciate. It's also a fairly good balance of, strong episodes for the Doctor, Romana, and K9. I'm glad they all got sort of their chances to shine here and there. Yeah. So I'd say I enjoyed it quite a bit, but there are some problems I think that
Well, I
creep
think
in.
the main thing that I at least saw as a sticking point going into it is there is an unfortunate comparison to make with Black Orchid, one of the least well regarded Doctor Who stories by us.
Yeah.
In this show, it is another episode that relies on the staggering coincidence that somebody important in this world and to these characters looks exactly like the companion.
Yeah.
Now, I will say it is still a massive coincidence that doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. However, I am more willing to accept it when one of those characters is a Time Lord.
Yeah,
Me
so am
too.
I can reconcile it more by being like, well, Time Lord just pulls faces
Yeah.
from all throughout the universe's history and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Nissa's just a regular person.
Yeah.
And they also do slightly more with it in this. There is
Yes.
like
Yeah.
I mean there are androids that are duplicating other people, so like
Yeah.
they're using the same method here. The issue I come up with then is okay. Well, here's my main issue. I'll get to my main issue at the moment. It's called the Androids of Tara, and
There's very little androids in
there's
this
not many
Tara.
androids, which isn't my main criticism, but like the android stuff is at least somewhat compelling in a Princess and the Pauper kind of way, where they're doing it for interesting scenarios like standing in for the king and all this stuff and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And the sci-fi concepts are interesting as well, like this medieval style planet, but with electronic swords and androids and stuff. I think all that stuff is very interesting from a world building perspective. And then episode 4 shows up, and then there's no more androids. The swords, I guess, are electronic, but they might as well not be because, like, it never really comes up in the fight that happens with the swords at the end. So episode 4 is basically just another Black Orchid, not to the same degree, but to the point where it's like, this doesn't necessarily have to be a sci-fi. This could be any story in any other show. And there's a duplicate character that looks exactly like one of our main characters. I was like, oh, careful, Androids of Tara. You didn't understand what made you compelling in the first 3 parts, and then
Well, it's
all
funny.
of a sudden, your final episode kind of suffered as a result.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I because it had been a long time since I'd seen this story. When because I do remember it being set on this sort of medieval planet, or area. But from my memory, I thought it was set on Earth because it's looks very similar to Earth. They even know what dogs
Oh,
are,
yeah.
apparently.
Mm.
And I thought,
Well, I mean, they're
oh,
humans.
is it like?
Knowing what dogs are isn't a huge stretch.
I mean, what I thought was, Tara, is it like that place in Ireland that I've kind of heard about? So is this like a historical episode with some wacky sci-fi elements? No, it's a completely different planet.
Well, so you wouldn't want that right after the Bloodstones.
No, you wouldn't. But I think I hadn't put that idea together. I think I just thought, oh yeah, it's a story, and yet it's set on Earth because it looks like Earth. You are right though, Sam. Yeah, like you wouldn't want to do two historical stories, one back to back, unless there was some sort of bigger reason. But
particularly involving like
Earth set stories. I mean, but yes,
like
yeah,
Celtic culture.
Yeah.
That.
But it is interesting, Cuff, that you say that the last episode has a very, shall we say, terrestrial flavor to it. When it already, before that, it's I wouldn't say it's borderline, but it gets surprisingly close to being standard historical stuff, because we do have the sci-fi technology and the androids, and that is interesting when it's there. I like the whole, confused switcheroo element. But it feels a bit disconnected from the rest of it, because a lot of it is mainly just courtly intrigue, right? We've got evil Count wanting the throne.
It's Shakespearean.
With a lot of it, yeah. We've got kidnapped princes. We've got kidnapped princesses. But then we've got this sci-fi element sort of crammed in. Now, to its credit, until that last episode, I think it's using it pretty well, and it makes it at least intriguing from a world-building perspective. But I wonder how well, it all comes together. Although for me, that's not the biggest issue I have with it, but we can get to that later.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't want it to sound like I don't like the story. I said at the start I enjoyed it. I think that was more for like the courtly intrigue stuff being integrated with the androids and stuff. I don't know why because I found that stuff genuinely quite gripping and compelling when it was like, oh, both sides have android duplicates. There's this like, the noble royal family, even though they look down on the peasants consistently, which not great. Combined with the scheming Count who wants to take the throne for himself, also using androids in his plot. This is a nice touch, and I especially like that they showcase the androids as like, these aren't amazing technological, or at the very least they're being stretched beyond what they were designed to do, because I think the world building suggests that the peasants, quote unquote, had built them to handle the more some manual labor stuff, blah blah blah, when the nobles abandoned them after a plague or whatever, which is certainly an interesting concept, and the upper class became, it's sort of this, it's like a weird inversion of reality where the upper class became like they don't know how to use them, so it's the lower class that have the better technology, or however you want to look at it. It's an interesting world building dynamic. But anyway, like I was looking forward to this Princess in the Port. I say Princess in the Port because I'm naturally going back to the Barbie version, because that's the one I watched the most growing up. But this Prince in the Pauper style, like, we have like the royal we got to hide the fact that the king is blah blah. We need to make sure this coronation goes ahead. Like it's a low stakes.
Well, it's
for a
the
Doctor Who
fucking
episode, but it's effective.
It's the fucking thing Padme does in Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
she just has a bunch of body doubles.
In fact,
to be like, if someone assassinates the queen, it's the double who dies instead.
I think like, because the Doctor says, oh, it has been done before, and I should have really researched this, but I'm fairly certain this story is an adaptation of, it's either The Count of Monte Cristo or The Man in the Iron Mask. I can't remember which one it is. But
Apparently, it was
there's
inspired by
I'm
the
not-
prisoner of
not-
Zenda. Is apparently
no, that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking
I was
of.
gonna
Sorry,
say I'm
yeah.
not super familiar with either of those, but like what I am familiar doesn't really line up.
Prisoner of Zenda is what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But in a way, maybe that does make sense because you've got, I assume Prisoner of Zenda is set in either medieval times or something similar. So you've got this story of courtly intrigue, but it's Doctor Who, and of course we've got to put something strange in it, and I suppose the writers just went for robots and electric swords, I suppose. But again, that goes back to my point: how well are these elements being integrated? I fear maybe not so much.
I was
So
sufficiently entertained for the first 75% of the story. Like I said,
Yeah.
when it just became Prisoner of Zenda at the end, I found myself dropping off a little bit because I kept wanting like the sci-fi elements to come back around and there to be some kind of, oh, is there some kind of secret android that's there to like be the decoy so that other stuff can happen while Grendel is having this sword fight or whatever.
Mm.
And that never really happened. And I just kept being like, oh, okay, well, that feels like a waste of potential.
Yep, a little bit.
So I never really felt the drop off in sci-fi, and as I said before, that's because I thought this was going to go a very different way than it did.
Let's hear it then.
I thought that this was going to be Westworld. I thought the
Right.
reveal was going to be that all of them are androids and they're all like playing out a pre-programmed medieval political intrigue story. And as the story progressed, they were going to like break out of that narrative more. But then like halfway through episode 1, I was like, oh, okay, no, that's not what's going to happen.
Halfway through episode
And then I
one,
still enjoyed what was there, but like I would have enjoyed all of them being robots a lot more. Or at
Well, it
least
would have made it more.
or at least like one character who we think is real turns out to be an android and
like
has
one of
been
the
the whole
king,
time. Like,
like
yeah,
one of the
one of
king's
the like if
advisors.
the king's like main bodyguard guy was like, what? He was a robot the whole time? What a twist.
Which would explain why
Something?
he was so like Prime Directive style.
Yeah,
Not
like
Prime
so
Directive,
like
like that the May anytime anyone new shows up, let's kill. Like
yeah.
could be just a program.
He's the one who said, like, make an android a king. That's unheard of. What are you talking about? It would have made it more interesting. As
Yeah.
it was, we got this fairly, no, I wouldn't say generic, but
Like I
like
s-
the
like I said, I
courtly
still
intrigue is
enjoyed it.
stuff I've seen before. Yeah.
I thought it was going to go down a route of because we are kind of like in episode 1 at least, we are kind of like thrust into this like it's a political uprising. It's this whole like
Yeah.
there's a power struggle for who gets to be the next king. And where I thought it was going to go was until Count Gendril makes his obvious turn to villainy. Not really a turn to villainy, but like he becomes so outward about it. But I thought it was going to be the Doctor gets fed a story by Prince Reynard, Romana gets fed a story by the Count, and like they each believe that the other side is
Yeah.
the evil oppressive force, and you could sell it either way because it's very easy for Prince Reynard to be like, oh, the traitorous Count Grendril desires my throne, but also you can have Count Grendril being like that, authoritarian prince cares not for the common folk, and there is no legitimate claim to the throne, blah blah blah.
But then,
and we were going to get this really interesting Romana versus the Doctor, for at least for a little bit, kind of like both of them to some degree are like believe that the other person is fighting on the wrong side. that, and then there's androids there as well. Like that, I think for a moment I thought that could have been interesting, but then I remembered no, this was made in the 70s. There was not this big anti-royalist movement yet. They're not going to do that.
Here's the thing. It's not impossible in Classic Who to have themes like that. I think that even some of them were maybe kind of explored in the Peladon Tales, but
A little bit.
having it done to that extent, I think, yeah, it's a bit unrealistic. Like, I hate to say it, but if you genuinely thought that's where the story was going to go, you're giving a lot of Classic Who a bit too much credit. Again, I hate to say that, but I think it's kind of true. And that it sounds like a really great idea, but it's not what happened. And it turns out that Grendel was just another upper class hole type who was just hungry for power. Now, granted, I kind of admire a sort of, I guess, the sense of social realism there, depicting how, the royalty treats the underlings, because that's how, unfortunately, that's how it used to be. But it does make it, thematically a bit thinner. That being said, and I should have looked up the name of the actor, but the guy who plays Grendel, man, he's having fun.
He's having a great time.
Having a
He
lot of
reminds
fun
me
there.
of, I can't remember his name either, but he reminds me of the guy who plays the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Well, he's almost comedic, right? And he's got that.
Yeah.
He's got these melodramatic moments. There's a bit where I forgot what it was. I think it's when
Just the bit where he just like fucking chucks that spear into the robot prince.
well, there's that.
Does
But then there's a
fucking
bit
flip
where
over the banister and escapes.
he's got this weird mannerism where he kind of clenches his fist to his face. It's like, damn, and it just.
He's a
It's
very
ridiculous,
fun.
but it
Yeah.
works.
And he's like, I
He's a
think
fun
I'll
antagonist.
refuse the crown the first time, and
Yeah.
then I'll accept it on the second, because they won't ask me a third time, so I don't want to
Yeah.
risk it. But like, I'll
What I love
appear
about
humble.
what I love about this guy as well is that like his plan fails like 3 or 4 times,
He just
but
pivots.
he always has a backup plan.
Yeah.
He's able to pivot. It's a really great like.
Or he just
for
keeps
this.
he just keeps going. I mean, what is it? The head guard guy says, if there's one thing that Grendel doesn't like, it's nerve, which is true because he doesn't know, and technically he doesn't die in the end. For all we
No,
know,
he
he's going to come back
escapes.
with a new scheme tomorrow.
And that was the intention of the writer. He was like, he liked Grendel as a character, and he was like, I don't want to kill him. I want to leave the door open for his eventual return. And he did, not on TV. There was a book, I think, called The Trials of Tara, where Grendel returned and allied himself with a very surprising villain from the Doctor's back catalogue. A classic era villain, a one-off classic era villain. Would anyone like to take a guess as to who Grendel allied himself with?
I'm gonna guess either the Candyman or the Menoptera, just because those are two very out there suggestions.
Well, you'd be right with one of those. It was the Candyman.
Are you fucking kidding me?
See, that's the kind of thing you should have saved for the fucking quiz cup.
I know, but like,
that is...
I don't know how to work that into a question, like, because this is.
I
so specific.
I thought to myself, not literally, obviously, but I just thought if it's a Candyman, I'm gonna shit myself. That's what the fuck.
Also, I'm actually you there, Fitz. The Menoptera aren't the villains. You're thinking of the Zarbi. The Menoptera.
I meant just well, there's actually a little bit of resistance from them, but yes, you're right. The main oppressor in the web planet is the Zarbi. It would be funny if he allied with the Menoptera, though. But yes, I cannot believe that's.
Oh my god! What the fuck?
What?
Okay, this is. Let me. What? Okay, so the story begins with the Doctor, the Seventh Doctor, and a companion called Benny. They visit Tara. For some reason, Benny is a woman, but she dresses as a man for some reason. They don't go into detail as to why. Bernice Summerfield is her full name. Reynard is missing, Strella must marry, and Grendel of Gracht is plotting against her. They don't do many new things with these characters in the Trials of Tara. They
I mean,
basically
they're
just
about to
retread
introduce
old
the
ground.
fucking Candyman. That seems pretty new.
Well, Grendel has kidnapped Titania, wife of Oberon, king of the fairies, in order to force Oberon to help him. So he's going back to that well of kidnapping people to force other people to do shit. He has also revived the Candyman, who has crashed on the planet, to help him. Again, doesn't really go into too much detail about how the Candyman ended up on Tara, how it crashed there.
It's like I can almost like see the connective tissue of like, oh yeah, Candyman crashes there. They know how to work androids. They could probably fix it and get it working again. But like, is no one going to address the fact he looks like he's made of fucking candy?
There was a plot by a visiting prince to marry Strella, then murder her. Again, very original story you're telling with these characters. You tell new
Maybe-
stories, and
Well, maybe-
even better. Here's the last couple lines of the synopsis. The Candyman threatens to kill Strella, but Grendel's men won't let him and kill him. Grendel runs away and his army surrenders. Grendel ends the story exactly the same way he ended the first. We learn nothing new about. I haven't even read this book, and I already know we know nothing new about these characters by the end of the Trials of Tara. The writer of this literally just thought, what if Grendel and the Candyman teamed up, and thought no further?
I mean, look, devil's advocate. As much as the medieval politics side of this story is just rehashing old shit, fucking Candyman and the King of the Fairies are in it. So there's got to be something to it.
I guess, but that stuff isn't even detailed in the description of the story. You'd think they would go into a bit more depth if there was interesting shit done with those concepts.
It's that is intriguing, and that's
I still want to read it. It sounds buck wild.
Jesus.
It's
I
interesting how
cannot believe
little
I
the
actually
key to
got that
time
guess right.
matters.
But anyway,
It's interesting how little the key to time matters in this episode as well. Like they just sort of find it at the start, and then it's kind of like put in a room for a little bit.
I mean, I will say, in the broader context of a 6-story long arc, I do find it refreshing that one of them is just like, well, we got it right away. And
Me
now
too.
the problem is getting away from this situation and not having to deal with another story that revolves entirely around a MacGuffin that will turn out to be the piece of the key.
This
Yeah.
is true.
Because
However-
after a certain number of stories like that, it would start to get old, I think.
And that does lead me onto what, like, unfortunately, it does mean that this episode could be put in any other season and it would basically be unchanged. Which
I mean, yeah, but
does
you could say
lead
that
me
of
to
really.
yes, which is why I'm hoping, anyway, that all of the Key to Time stuff has a satisfying conclusion. Because if not, it's going to lead me to be like, well, why did you do this in the first place? Now that we've had an episode that basically the Key to Time was irrelevant, and 3 episodes in a row where you just keep the Key to Time as the MacGuffin it already was and nothing changes, I am going to start to be like, okay, stick the landing, please.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've compared this format of like thing of the week plus get the MacGuffin to lead up to the end of the story arc. I've compared it to Deltora Quest before, which I think which like is fairly similar, but like I think in this instance it's more like the second series of Deltora Quest, which was
with the Piran Pipe.
The Piran Pipe, yeah. So like the first one is at the end of that we've beaten the monster and we've got the first piece of the pipe. Then the second one, we've beat the monster, we've got the second piece of the pipe. And then the third one was the finale of that story arc. So they're like, and we get the third piece right at the fucking beginning. We have assembled the pipe, we've got the thing. And now the rest of the book is going in to defeat the big bad guy who we needed the pipe to defeat in the first place.
I thought it
Yeah.
was the other way around. I thought they got the first part of the Piran pipe in at the beginning of the first book because they find it, I think, in the palace somewhere. Then they get the second part. Oh, actually, no. I think I'm.
Uh,
No. I think you're right. But
maybe it was like that. The important thing being that the final part is we get the piece immediately,
Yeah.
complete the MacGuffin, and now that we have the completed MacGuffin, we can use its ability to influence the rest of this story, which
Yeah.
I won't necessarily automatically be disappointed if that's not what I. Because we got Power of Crawl is next. Then what's the final one called?
The
Armageddon
Armageddon
Factor.
factor.
All right. If Armageddon Factor doesn't start with, and now we have the key to time, and the rest of the story is using it to deal with the Black Guardian situation and all that stuff, I won't necessarily hate it immediately on principle, but I am kind of hoping that's how that story goes.
Yeah. I only ever read Rowan of Rin. Anyway.
You're missing out.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I'm not
they're
saying
both good, and both set in the same universe, actually.
Yeah, I looked
Really?
that up now.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
It wasn't until years and years later that was confirmed, but
Is Emily Rodda still writing?
I don't know, actually.
Not that I know of.
I mean, she might be just not under that name, because I know that's not her real name.
Yeah, it's a
but
pseudonym.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, she's written under Jennifer Rowe,
yeah.
which I think that's her real name, and then she
All the
rebranded.
fantasy stuff is under Emily Rodda.
Oh, she wrote a trilogy in 2024
Okay.
called Landoval. Landoval. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but she's still working. That's nice.
Yeah, that's cool. It's really great to have a fantasy author from childhood who's consistently bringing out good quality works that we can celebrate. Anyway,
Androids.
yeah. So I want to bring up my issues with this story, and they may not be as bad as I have blown them up to be in my mind. You folks will have to maybe help me out here, but I think the issue I had is like the courtly intrigue is a big part of the story, and that's fine. It's quite interesting and fun. But the whole element of like the prince has to be there literally at the right moment, and he doesn't show up, and Grendel is present, and he's being kind of shifty about it. Like, I'm not sure if I fully believe that. Like, I don't. Okay, so you know how people will say things like, "Oh, that's not realistic in Game of Thrones because that's not like this historical thing." That is like people when people complain about stuff like that, it is a cop out because it's a fantasy thing. However, if you are going to make not just with fantasy, any sort of strange fiction with strong world building, I think it does need to be consistent. And the problem I have is, given that this is a world where it's implied that there's quite a big history to it, it's this dynasty seems to go back a number of generations. For such a flimsy way to crown a royal, I can't believe that it as a society or a kingdom would exist that long, because to bring it to real world precedent, I don't think people would just stand by and say, "Well, fuck it, the prince is gone. Guess we've got to give it to the new guy." People, that's the stuff that would get people killed in other contexts. And the fact that you have Grendel being kind of suspicious and no one thinking, this seems really strange. He's being a little bit odd about it. I wonder if we should do something about that. It just seems it doesn't work with the internal logic of the world that they've created here. Now, that's not to say it ruins the whole thing, and the courtly intrigue itself I still find to be very interesting and compelling, but watching it a second time, I'm like, seems a little broken, a little
I
bit.
think it's fairly internally consistent, given that
Yeah.
the coroner, the Archimandrite, just had no questions asked about doing this shady wedding in the chapel, and then the doctor shows up and Grendel immediately starts acting suspicious, and then Archimandrite says literally nothing for the rest of the episode. Like these seem to be just people who are naturally just chill, and then like
Yeah.
Grendel comes along and is just a bit different. Like I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing, because like again that's a big part of episode 4 that I also didn't like very much, which is when Grendel immediately starts like evil character ordering people to be killed or whatever, and then no one around him is like, Grendel, what are you doing? Like there's no surprise at all from this like important religious leader who's doing all this stuff. He's just like kind of like, oh, I'll just bumblefuck through all of this.
Yeah.
Maybe
Like, I
those
think,
other elements. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
now I was just gonna say, like, I think, like, maybe the specifics of how this royal crowning system works aren't necessarily realistic to our reference points for royal families that have existed or still exist now, but like they're fucking royal families. They have all kinds of weird contrivances and
I mean, that's true. But I just think
like if the rule existed for whatever reason in our society that whoever the next British monarch was had to be at their coronation at a certain time date, and if they weren't, someone else could just put their hand up and say, I want to be king. If that rule had existed, the types of people who give a shit about the royal family would hold that rule to like a sacrosanct level of like importance. They would be like, well, you know, Charles wasn't at the coronation at exactly 12:29 p.m. So that means that yeah, someone else gets to be king now.
that's true.
That's how
but I think
that's the rule. That's how royals work.
I think for me though, the given that the
I think
court
what Fitz is more saying is that it's a system that invites
yes,
assassins.
yeah, like I can't imagine that
I mean,
any
yeah.
kingdom or society would last a long time without it completely breaking down, because if you tell somebody, well, you weren't here at the right time, somebody's just going to come up and stick a knife in the back of the person who's
maybe that's why there's an ancient tunnel under the castle that only the royal family seems to know about. Like they've probably already run into this situation in the past, and then they thought, well, do we want to I don't know, do we want to get rid of that ceremonial rule of like the right place, right time thing? No, that's tradition. Let's build a tunnel instead.
Well,
should
anyway,
we
maybe it
get
goes
rid
back.
of this thing that invites assassins? No, we've got robots that look like people. Just use those.
But that
We're not
maybe
using them
that's
for anything else. We may as well use them for that.
maybe that's the whole thing, and I don't know. Maybe I'm also giving some, well, not all of Classic Who, but some Classic Who a bit too much credit. But I find it hard to take some of that world building seriously, which I find frustrating because, again, the courtly intrigue I quite like, but when you put it together with world building that seems kind of flimsy, it really breaks the illusion for me.
Well, I think it's more the fact that not once, and I bring it back to the Archimandrite, the coroner, but he's not a coroner. He's just he does the coronation. That doesn't make him a coroner. That's a completely different role. But not once while they're waiting for the prince to appear does he express the slightest bit of, did something happen to him?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think
it's just taken on face value.
No
it's taken on face value while they're waiting in the court. Well, it's like they approach it with the energy of, well, he slept in. I guess he can't be the king.
It honestly, and we talked about this, I think, similarly before, ironically, in the Happiness Patrol cuff. But honestly, I reminded it gives off Gilbert and Sullivan vibes.
Up with the Candyman.
Exactly, it gives off Gilbert and Sullivan vibes. And I cannot. I mean, I love Gilbert and Sullivan, but the point of those stories is that you're not meant to take them seriously, or the plot, at least. So when you
I
have
mean-
this ludicrousness combined with, again, interesting and fairly serious courtly intrigue, I just can't. The illusion is broken. I can't marry up the two elements in my brain. It just doesn't. It doesn't compute for me.
I guess if there's anywhere that I'm like, I'm going to accept that there's a bunch of stupid bullshit rules that don't make sense that everyone just takes as gospel, then like, yeah,
Yeah.
the minutia and traditions of a royal family is probably the place to go.
I mean that's true. That is true. I just don't know if that really works to this extent.
I mean,
And
there's
even
certainly they could have done some. Like I said, I think for me, it's less of a world building issue and it's more of a characterization issue. Because again, I would have liked just the slightest hint of maybe we should go check on Prince Reynard. See if he's okay? Like Grendel's whole plan hinges upon no one sending out a search party for the missing prince.
yeah, and that's
that-
part of it too. That it just sort of these
His
royals
plan
don't
is
seem to really give a fuck.
Yeah, his plan is I'm going to kidnap the prince, and then I'm going to be next in line for the throne, and then everyone else on Tara is just gonna forget that Reynard ever existed, so that I can kill him, and there'll be no repercussions.
Yeah.
I
mean, like
well,
it could be like a cultural thing that we just don't have enough context. Like the rationale could be like, well, if the future king isn't able to show up on time and prevent himself from being assassinated, then he doesn't deserve to be king, and someone else gets a go.
that is an
Right.
intriguing idea.
Like it
but
does,
if that
it doesn't necessarily like that kind of like that. That seems more like a Klingon type of cultural
It
thing.
does.
That's
than what
true,
we,
and it
what we're
seems
presented with here. But like
and it seems intriguing. But if that was the
there's any
case, I would have
number of
preferred.
justifications. I think.
True, but I would have preferred those justifications to be more central in the episode. And actually, going back to something you said, Cuff, about sort of the lack of thematic complexity here, when you've got upper class versus lower class and the struggles between them. If they really emphasized that the arrogance of the upper class and that they do religiously stick to traditions and Grendel's taking advantage of that, then maybe it could have worked a bit more. But as it was, they just didn't put enough attention towards that. There's hints of it, but not enough, I think, for me to really appreciate the whole package.
There is
that being said, though,
but so there is
Okay.
well, there's an element of the way that the monarchy is set up. It does reek a little bit of that one Futurama episode where it's like Bond the Viscous was drunk by this monarch, who was subsequently slurped up by this monarch, and like that's all well and good for that. But like I don't think
Fry's
like,
assassin, Fry's assassin's assassin.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
at least my assassin will get what's coming to him.
exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the system they've set themselves up for, and I think it would have been better if they had like at any point either at any point a character expresses concern for the well-being of the prince, or at any point a character, the doctor or Romana, is like, hey, this system sucks, just even to each other. Like, I think that would have helped a lot.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. That being said, as I said, I still quite enjoyed this
I do too.
episode.
Yeah, I will say, as much as I was like disappointed that it wasn't the Westworld I was hoping it was, the one thing this story does better than anything else in Key to Time so far is the banter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the doctor has many great one-liners in this.
Oh yeah. If you touch my sarcophagus, you're gonna have to kill me. It's my favorite.
When he says, it's like it's a guard's duty to die with honor, and it's like, well, then he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about? I know this is really skipping towards the end. It's very satisfying to see a scenario where K9 makes some sort of contact with the water and doesn't immediately explode.
Yeah.
Watching him float on the little boat thing.
It's such a weird ending.
Yeah.
It's so
It's like a
weird and
sitcom
dumb.
ending.
Yeah.
It's
Like
Sue stuck
everybody
in the
laughs,
cornfield.
freeze frame. Da na na na
Yeah.
na na.
It's Seuss in the
Yeah.
cornfield at the end of that one Gravity Falls episode. Like,
How great is it? And it's
Yeah.
such a
wow.
even that whole denouement part is very sudden as well. It's like, it's like, oh no, where's the key to time? I'm sure I left it in here. Haha, jokes on you, Romana. I got one over you again. And then it's K9. Oh shit, he's on the water, and the doctor just laughs.
I will say speaking of Romana quickly, like
Hmm.
I don't think it's amazing that she spends basically all of episode 3 being like, okay, I'm gonna sneak out of here, and then the Grendel will have no more leverage, and then the episode cliffhanger is, oh no, Romana's been kidnapped by Grendel.
Romana getting trapped or kidnapped.
Well, not even that. It's just It's just more that her entire storyline in that
Yeah.
episode ended up being meaningless because, like,
Well,
if she
I
had
mean,
not escaped, it would have been the exact same story.
I guess. Well, the bit, cause doesn't she go back? Because when she gets back to the prison, doesn't she help the prince
No,
escape or
no, because that's when
no?
when she
No,
gets
that's
kidnapped
right, yeah.
again. That's when they start. That's when they are forced to marry each other.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm mixing up plot elements. Yeah, it's not great, and it's a shame because there's sort of promising elements with her characterization of being resourceful and figuring things out. The bit where she gets the little lockpick screwdriver thing, that's almost not terribly believable because it happens so quickly just under the villain's noses, but I can still believe that it would happen. But it's good that she's doing these things, but as you say, it gets kind of squandered near the end there, which is a little unfortunate.
Do we have much else to
Anything
say?
else to say? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I think that's it.
Basically, like we have the. Yeah, I mean, it's a fine episode. It's nothing special or anything, but it's another entertaining at least chapter in the Key to Time storyline.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
I
like I
wasn't
said,
bored
I
at any
think it,
point, even
I think
in
it's the
part 4.
weakest, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
Like,
Ribos Operation is less compelling to me than this one, except for that one guy who gets reaffirmed about his opinions on space travel or whatever that was. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
found that one not so strong compared to this. I think this
I would
one
say
slightly edges it out.
I can see where you're coming from, but I have the more personal nostalgic connection to Ribos.
You do.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
With that in mind, what are we? How are we scoring Androids of Tara? I'm giving it a 7.
I'll give
I'm
it
a
a 6.
7 as well.
A 6 for Fitz?
Yes.
Great. Well, next time it's the beginning of the end for this chunk of the podcast because we will be reviewing The Stolen Earth.
Boy.
Hooray!
Not Journey's End. Once again, we're splitting the finale into its individual episodes. It feels incredibly appropriate to do it here because both Stolen Earth and Journey's End are just so goddamn dense.
And it's also good to do it to keep up with the Key to Time. That's funny how that all worked out.
It's what a
It's like
what
we
a lovely
planned it ahead of time.
Mm.
But until then, I'm Alex.
I'm Fitz.
I'm Sam.
Bye-bye. That's all I've got. I've literally got nothing else. I'm just going to say goodbye to the audience. That's all I've got. You guys want to weigh in?
Nope. Nope, that's it.
The worst outro yet.